This video is going to be a film study look slash commentary on Mark Andrews' role with the 2024 Ravens offense. There's a ton of storylines leading into training camp, the regular season, and then hopefully a long playoff run. You've got Mike McDonald gone. I think there's a ton of defensive position talent from a coaching standpoint that left as well. That's kind of being going under the radar. You got the acquisition of Derrick Henry. I think I said this as soon as it happened, that it's the most impactful free agent signing in the entire league. And I understand people, there's people who do not agree. He's a 30-year-old running back, whatever. Second year in Todd Monken's offense, his new offense, I guess, is pretty amazing. If you ask me, that the Ravens finished fourth in points scored in 2023, I believe a tick over 28 points per game. Also the balance, 27 total passing touchdowns, 26 total rushing touchdowns. I think that's a unique thing in the NFL at all, but particularly in 2023. The offensive line obviously is a tremendous amount of concern for people, rightfully so. While I do think there is depth there, meaning multiple options at some of the various positions to replace, I understand completely and agree with people who focus on the offensive line and think that it is an area of concern. Personally, I think Moses and Zeitler are the two losses there. I would not look at left guard as a loss. I think for the players that we have available to plug into that spot, it's going to be addition by subtraction. Now, the one player we're going to focus on here, I think, is under the radar in some ways, and that's Mark Andrews. I will have significant film that will flow through. The return of him along with Isaiah Likely is a proven duo at tight end. Now, Andrews' length of career is far longer than Likely, so there's a lot more film out there to illustrate what he's capable of. You're basically adding Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews to a team that won 13 regular season games last year. Could have easily won 14 if you were actually trying to win the last game of the season against the Steelers in Week 18. I think it's pretty shocking. You have two guys, Henry and Mark Andrews. They've accounted or combined for 130 touchdowns in their career. If I did that right, perhaps I did that wrong, so forgive me. Nonetheless, they're both still young. Andrews is 28 years old. Henry just turned 30 in January. I'm going to focus on Andrews in this video and the impact that he can have on the offense. It's unique, if you ask me. I think he played 10 games last year, maybe 9. So there's significant film of his role in this offense, in Todd Monken's new style offense. If we rewind a year ago, he was very efficient, 45 catches on 61 targets. Look, that's the highest catch percentage in Mark Andrews' career, 74% basically. You're talking about 73.8%, I believe. He led the team with 6 touchdown catches, 12.1 yards per catch. It's his efficiency and the yards per target that I think is really interesting to examine when you look at some of the film and when you look at the numbers, the data, the stats. So here it is. Highest yards per target in his career since, I think, 2021, when he had 107 catches and 9 touchdowns. So similar to Lamar in some ways, there's some low interception rate stuff with Lamar, highest completion percentage, and a really high touchdown to interception ratio with Lamar at the same time. With Andrews, you have his highest yards per target in 3 years at the same time that you have a 74% catch percentage. So really efficient and really dangerous from yards generated per target. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Maybe I'm not getting to all of it on a Saturday morning, but I believe it's the efficiency of the passing game that can threaten people even more in 2024 now that Derrick Henry's here, and theoretically he should make the already best running game in the NFL even better. Now look, is Mark Andrews ever going to get 150 targets again? No. We don't need him to. Just so you know, this is film from late in 2021, the last 4 or 5 games of the season. Ravens do not need him to. There's a tremendous differential in talent surrounding Mark Andrews from that 2021 season. I'm talking about late in the year when Lamar missed the last 4 games, really the last 5. And then we're also without J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards the entire season. Tremendous difference in who's available and around Mark Andrews that also has gravity. Derrick Henry, a healthy Lamar Jackson, obviously. Zay Flowers, and others. In this stretch of games that I'm showing you film of here, in case you forgot, I thought it was pretty amazing. Andrews had 43 catches on 55 targets in these 5 games to get over the 100 catch barrier. Again, we're talking about 2021, so Dobbins and Edwards aren't there, like I said. The last 4 or 5 games, he was the best option. He was the best player available, along with Marquise Brown, obviously. He won't have to be relied upon like that in 2024. Nonetheless, the film we have of him from last year in this offense, he's already efficient and dangerous. Again, 6 touchdowns, I think, in 9 complete games, and the highest yards per target dating back to 2021. There's just too much talent on this roster to need a ball-dominant player like Andrews to get 55 targets in 5 games. It was incredible, if you recall. I think he had 14 targets one game and double-figure targets in 2 others in that final 5-game stretch. He can do it on a specific possession, meaning dominate the possession, win a matchup. He can do it in a specific game or playoff situation. And I think that's what one thing the Ravens front office really needs to be given credit for is collecting or acquiring guys who have big game potential, a history of playing well in big games, and the ability to do it against a high-level talent like Andrews, Henry, and others have shown throughout their career. Certainly, it's a more varied or diverse passing system under Todd Monken. We all understand that. We all understood that last year prior to the beginning of the 2023 regular season, but we understand it very acutely heading into the second year under Todd Monken. These will be some offensive plays from 2023 when Andrews was healthy. It's not only a more variable system, meaning there's more concepts to use, there's definitely a higher standard of responsibility put on everyone. Maybe Andrews doesn't have as many choice routes. People call them option routes, whatever they are. This is truly a spread system, not just in alignment, the width of where players line up, meaning you don't have a tight end and 2 running backs in the backfield on every single play, which really isn't what Greg Roman used for the most part as the offense evolved somewhat to 2022. But this is a spread offense from a personnel standpoint, from a pre-snap alignment, the formation, and also who gets the football. There will be weeks where Mark Andrews only gets 4 or 5 targets. There just will. There's also going to be games where Monken and the offensive staff recognize that they can take advantage of a certain matchup. It could be Andrews against a linebacker or a DB. Look, there's significant film of him defeating outside corners in the last 2-3 years. Could he do it on a play-by-play basis, meaning every snap could he be outside wide receiver? Well, no. I think the route tree would probably be quite limited. And when you give those type of athletes, the guys who play outside corner in the NFL, and start. When you give those type of athletes intel, meaning you're only running 3 different types of routes, you just simply can't do that. They'll be able to take away at least 1 or 2 of those. There's 2 games from last year that I think really stick out in terms of Andrews' impact. Basically, his ability to dominate or control long stretches of a game and be relied upon, particularly in third down situations. We're very right-hand dominant offense for years. Andrews, as you see from a lot of these plays, is on the right-hand side. One thing to note from watching a lot of this film, he was in a 3-point stance on the right, making plays more than I remembered. I didn't remember him being in a 3-point stance as often as you're seeing these plays cycle back through again and making catches down the field from that 3-point alignment, that, quote, traditional inline tight end alignment pre-snap. I'm not sure about you. Am I expecting Mark Andrews to go out there and give this Ravens team 95, 100 catches? Well, no. There's just too many mouths to feed, too many guys who are talented and capable. Can Mark Andrews go out there and give the Ravens 10 catches in an important game against the Chiefs or against anyone else? Absolutely. I think that's the whole point. Credit has to be given to the front office for gathering players who can do those things at specific positions. And Todd Monken is blessed. He's just truly blessed to have talent at every spot to be able to run the entire offensive playbook. We'll focus on those 2 games, the 2 aforementioned games where he had incredible impact. Again, we're talking about against the Seahawks in Week 9 and against the Browns in Week 4. Week 4 against the Browns, 5 of 5 catches for 80 yards. This first game that you're going to see plays flow through on, here's the stats. 9 of 10 catches to targets, that is, 80 yards. He also had 2 touchdowns in that game, Week 4 game against the Browns. In between those, he had 2 touchdowns against the Lions. Also had a stretch of 5 games in a row, 6 weeks in a row, excuse me, where 5 of those games he was above the 60-yard marker for receiving. So relatively consistent. 5 touchdowns across those 6 weeks. And during that time, he had 32 catches for 42 targets. That's right in line with his 74% catch percentage. To me, there's enough evidence to display that all Andrews needs to get more catches, make more plays, more touchdowns, is just more opportunities. With more mouths to feed, they're not going to be there consistently every week, but he's a guy that the Ravens can go to in big moments. I'm going to let some of this film flow through. And against these 2 teams, the Browns and the Seahawks, he had 14 of 15 catches. So quite simply, when the Ravens needed him to, he was dominant. And the efficiency is the part that I was a little surprised by. If you look back at his 2021 stats, 153 targets, 107 catches. So a little over 66%, probably 70% catch percentage. We're at 74 this past year. I seem to remember 2 drops, one of which you guys have already seen cycle through. A drop in the end zone against the Steelers, which was extremely unfortunate for us, obviously. The other drop, I believe, was against Tennessee, but I could be wrong. Otherwise, incredibly efficient, reliable, open a lot more than when he's targeted. Lamar, rightfully so, was using other guys as the primary read. Remember the time period where Andrews was almost always the primary read, or he was a part of it, either 1 or 2 in the progression, or he was attached to someone else who was the primary read? Totally different offense. When I say that it's more varied and there's more responsibility on players, at times I think there might be less on Andrews because he has less choice or option routes. One thing he's incredible at, as you see there, beating Newsome, who's an outside corner for the Browns, a really high-level player that is he's great at adjusting when Lamar extends the play, and fantastic playmaking skills. This catch, this throw by Lamar, this catch in the back corner of the end zone against the Browns in Week 4, I thought was one of the best plays of the year in terms of the margin for error. Very low, and Andrews making it happen. Do I think that he should get the football more? No, I don't. I really don't care, to be honest with you. I'm not necessarily here to focus on stats, even though I did spend significant time talking about the stats. I really don't care if he's a 90-catch guy. Could he put up 90 catches, 10 touchdowns, be an all-pro again? Sure. If that's what you're worried about, you can say he's declining when he only gives you 78 catches and 7 touchdowns this year. Fact of the matter is, if you ask me, at age 28, it's not a matter of can't do. It's a matter of how many chances he gets in terms of the football being thrown to him. This offense is just too talented. They won't need Andrews or even Derrick Henry to dominate the football, just in terms of receiving options. Bateman, Flowers, Aguilar, Likely, Walker, pretty great set of guys to then add Mark Andrews on top of. From a running back standpoint, Henry and Justice Hill will try to carry the load clearly, along with Lamar. Keaton Mitchell will miss a significant amount of time. Were you to have him healthy for Week 1, this is a ridiculously talented offense. If you have Keaton Mitchell, Derrick Henry, and Justice Hill back there at running back, along with the players at tight end and receiver that I named earlier, it's a really weird dynamic that so many fan bases get into in terms of protecting their quarterback and then protecting their talking points. I personally don't care because I don't think Lamar needs protection. Nonetheless, I do understand the dynamic whereby he came here, he was so young, 21, if I recall, when he was drafted, and then went through an unbelievable resurgence as a rookie with a unique offense, don't get me wrong, but putting the Ravens in position in the playoffs where we were really surprised by it as a fan base, as fans. So we operate from that perspective that he was a young man who went through that situation, helped the team rise up in 2018, unfortunately go through a crushing playoff loss where so many people who made their original diagnosis, their original evaluation, I should say, were happy. And they still are. Every time we lose in the playoffs, it's the same talking points, the same criticisms, probably oftentimes coming from the same people who didn't think Lamar would succeed anyway in in the NFL coming into the draft in 2018. I don't think Lamar needs protection. I don't think he needs more weapons. He's one of the best players in the league. And the Ravens, when they have a healthy Andrews, Derrick Henry, a healthy Bateman, Flowers, likely, along with some of the other guys I've talked about, I think we've got multiple guys that can put up big numbers on any given week. And if they were to get more opportunities, say one or two guys is injured, those players can step up their level of production if the opportunities present themselves. It's a dangerous offense. I think it's a credit to the front office that they've created a roster this deep on the offensive side of the football. We will probably, hopefully, we don't need to see that 2021 stretch where Andrews dominated. Again, 43 catches in 5 games on 55 targets. I do think he's one of the players on this roster who could carry an offense in the playoffs and even in a Super Bowl situation. He has that level of ability, that level of confidence. It's his change of pace that's really different now in some ways. Almost with, as crazy as this sounds, with less choice routes, it seems like he varies his speed of release more often and kind of catches guys off guard. I think Henry and Zay Flowers are the other two, along with Lamar, obviously, who belong in that category. The potential to dominate in a playoff situation or a Super Bowl. Does Lamar have to play better in the playoffs? I mean, clearly, come on. There's no way to work around that. Can he? I believe he absolutely can. This offense, at a minimum, is 24 to 25 to 27 points per game. But last year, like I said, a tick over 28 points per game in the regular season. If you could somehow get this team to 25 or 28 points per game in the playoffs, you're going to win a Super Bowl, period. I think that's what they were trying to do last year. It confirmed this week, I believe, that confirmed once again, I should say, that the front office tried to acquire Derrick Henry at the trade deadline in 2023, 4th-round pick, if I recall correctly. And the Titans eventually turned it down as it moved up their front office, or their hierarchy, I should say. Cool. Is it great to hear that we were trying to get Derrick Henry? Yes. We got him now. Would he have helped? Yes, he would. But let me add a caveat to that. We just have to give credit to the Chiefs' defense on some level. You do have to. They were exceptionally good last year, second in the league in points per game allowed, very young, very fast, and athletic and smart, and extremely well coached. And in a playoff situation under Spagnuolo, those defenses, look, they know what to do. They're prepared. He knows what to take away in certain situations. Now, I think the Ravens not having a healthy Andrews and missing Keaton Mitchell was a larger issue than perhaps we all knew. And I mean, when I say we all knew, is after defeating the Texans at home, none of us were talking about those losses. We were happy to have a playoff win, happy to be hosting a game against Mahomes and Andy Reid and the Chiefs. I think those losses hurt. So on some level, the healthiest team in the playoffs is oftentimes the team that has the best chance to advance. The Ravens didn't play well. So I think we have the capability with a healthy offensive roster to score 25, 28, or even 30 points in a playoff game situation against any defense. Yes, I do. I think Mark Andrews is a huge part of that. I'm not one of those people who thinks that we should be looking to get rid of him just because Isaiah Likely is now a proven talent in the league. I consider him to be a proven talent. You may not. Could 2024 be different? You can tell by the way I'm talking. I absolutely think it is. Whichever team is the healthiest in the playoffs, or even after training camp, I should say, is the one that oftentimes is able to move on. Health permitting, this is one of the most talented offenses in the league. It's weird to hear others say that the Ravens are not super talented on offense, but then in the same breath, or the next breath, I should say, it's going to be difficult to get the ball to Andrews and Likely enough to have their stats justify their talent. Or how is Bateman going to exceed 80 targets? Or how is Derrick Henry going to get 16, 18 carries a game? You're almost tacitly admitting that there's a ton of talented guys who need the football or could execute and make plays with the football. And at the same time, saying this isn't a really talented offense. Just because it's not the number 1 or number 2 or number 5 offense in the league as far as wide receiver talent doesn't mean that it's not an overall incredibly talented offensive roster. Will it be enough to make up for the defensive losses? I consider the defensive coaching losses to be greater than the defensive personnel losses. I'm including Jadeveon Clowney in that, obviously, and Patrick Queen. Good players. Definitely root for them to continue to succeed, except for when they play the Ravens. I think the coaching talent on the defensive side of the ball is more of a loss early on that will even out or maybe even swing in the Ravens' favor as Zach Orr and his staff become more accustomed to preparing a game plan, getting into the 60-minute, four-quarter game situation and adjusting with the ebb and flow in the same manner that a guy like Steve Spagnuolo does with his experience and having seen so many things over the years. Man, I appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comment section, first of all. Let me know if you agree with my assessment about Mark Andrews, that at age 28, based on the film that we have from 2023, he still looks like the same kind of guy to me who can make the plays either when defenders are hanging on to him or separate, change of pace, sometimes on verticals. You saw a couple from 2021. That wheel route against the Bengals up in Cincinnati late in 2021 was pretty incredible, where Lamar was out, obviously, and I think Huntley was out. So we went up there with Josh Johnson and our quarterback and threw the ball a ton. Andrews made some amazing catches during that time period, but in that game specifically. Let me know if you agree with my assessment that he still appears to have the same level or equitable level of athleticism, playmaking ability, hands. That catch against the Browns in week 4, I continue to reflect on that at times and think about the difficulty standard for that throw. I forget the next gen stats company or website that seems to talk about chances of completing a pass or chances of making a play. That one seems awfully low. From the angle that we had on the All-22 and even the end zone, it looks really like a really tough angle for Lamar to throw it and drop it in there in perfect timing for Andrews to get up and high point it. That play and others illustrate to me that he's still a guy who can play the highest level for any tight end in the NFL if and when the Ravens offense needs him to be. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this content, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.